can see.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm with it. I'm with it.
Okay. Andrew Noon. Can't see him. Gretchen, I'm sure I could see you. Yep.
No.
Where's Gretchen? Yes, she is. She's here. Brian, Scott, and Kate.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, did I say we had 2 missing?
Andrew and Michael Laws.
Okay. Since the beginning of this meeting is really just about setup, I think I'll do that now and hopefully they'll come on. Reminder that this is going out live, this meeting. So I'm officially opening it, dear Liz. What I'd like us to do in a minute is to go through and introduce each other, I think in alphabetical order, just out there to the people who are watching, the whole 10 of them.
Sorry.
Yes.
Andrew Noon can't find the password. I'll try and send it to him.
Thank you,
We'll
dear.
mail it to him.
We'll all have the same passwords, do we?
Yep.
Yes. And Michael Laws was saying the same thing.
Okay, I'll send it to him as well.
I've sent it to Michael.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is what I want. Do you think I should hold that procedure bit until those 2 get on? And then otherwise I'll be repeating myself.
As much as you don't want to.
Yeah, I'll just wait for half a second. Who is that?
Michael Laws.
Michael's is there, right. Now we're just waiting for Andrew to come through.
Oh, I've sent it to the wrong person. Hold on.
You've sent it to Andrew Douglas, have you?
No. No, I've sent it to Michael Laws, which wouldn't have been helpful at all.
No, I'm
he's
here
already
now.
here. Yeah. Andrew's response was bloody IT, but that's okay. Well, it's Councillor Laws who told me that, but okay, I'm with you.
No, here I am.
Yeah, no.
He's got a nice office.
Michael, we're just waiting till we get Andrew, and then we're just going over some ways to manage the meeting while we are online and live streaming.
Oh.
I've just had a message from the ODT saying the council still has not been able to provide me with the means to watch the meeting. Oh, it's up now. He's now saying it's up, so that's all right. Somehow, Liz, that invitation didn't have, a previous one seemed to have the password as well as the login sort of thing, and this one didn't for some reason.
It
gets lost into the onto your calendar when you accept it. You have to click the calendar bit.
When you click on the meeting, the general.
No, it didn't go that. You had to do another little bit.
He's still having problems.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to go ahead. All right. So this is how I'd like us to do it. In a minute, if we could all introduce ourselves and do that in alphabetical order. But when we come to moving or seconding a motion, I want you to be able to put a hand up like that because I can see that most quickly. And then I'll call out your name as moving or seconding so that Liz doesn't have to keep on typing and looking across the screen all at the same time. And when we vote, we'll vote by division. I think that's the easiest way to do, with Liz, you calling out. Are people happy with that? Now, I wonder if we go around in alphabetical order. And Hilary, could you introduce yourself, please?
Councillor ORC?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Anything
am.
else? Okay. Michael, Deacon,
Yep, Michael Deaker. I'm another Dunedin constituency member.
Alexa,
Alexa Forbes, member for Dunstan.
and Marianne Hobbs, and I'm member for in the Dunedin constituency. Carmen.
Carmen Hope, member of Molyneux Ward.
Thank you. Carmen, have you got trouble listening? You're doing it through the phone.
I am Marion.
Okay, you okay?
Yes, I'm fine as long as you can hear. Thanks.
Yep, we are.
Yep.
Gary, where are you?
Yep, I'm here, Gary Kelleher, Dunstan constituency.
Thank you. Michael? Laws. Michael?
He's
where
been
are you?
muted.
Yeah, I'm just going to unmute him.
Unmute now. Thank you very much. I've got a cold, so my apologies.
Right, thank you, Michael. And is Kevin? Kevin, I can't see you, but where are you? Kevin, would you like to say who you are and where you're from?
Have you got me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Kevin Malcolm, Mulraki constituency. And Marion, just one thing, I'll have to vote with the icons because I just haven't got the connectivity to go full video.
Okay, love, that's beautiful. Gretchen,
Kia ora, Gretchen Robertson, Dunedin constituency.
thank you. Brian
Yeah, kia ora. Brian Scott, Dunedin constituency councillor.
and Kate.
Kia ora, Kate Wilson, Molyneux constituency.
And have I still got Andrew? No. Okay. So the first thing that we have, darling dearest, Shishi looking across here, we have no apologies, except that we've got Andrew still trying to get on. We've done the self-introduction and attendance. We've also got a number of staff in attendance as well. Several people, two people, both Kate and Andrew, have wanted to raise some issues that are within issues that are on the agenda. In other words, Kate wanted to raise something about Ferry, and Andrew has his motions on the plan change. You're reminded of conflict of interest. So now can we go to confirmation of minutes? That's the minutes of the 11th of March meeting. Whoops, oh, idiot. Okay, would somebody like to, are there any quick, right, I've got Alexa, I'm going to have same problems, moved and seconded by Carmen, that the minutes of the council meeting held on 11th of March be received and confirmed as a true and accurate record. Before we pass that motion or whatever, can I find out if there are any questions or queries about those minutes? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 That one being a procedural motion, and against, carried. So you move to the chair's report. And I just want to note that that report was written and before it was written for the meeting that we didn't have halfway through March. I think it's fairly straightforward. Okay. Would somebody, I'll move from the chair and I need a seconder. Can I have a seconder, Carmen, that the council receives this report? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And again, carried. Okay, there are no questions of that report. Can we move therefore to the CE's report? Would you like to speak to it and raise any issues that you want to raise?
Thank you, Chair. If I could take the report as read, you'll note that it was drafted quite some time ago, so events have overtaken matters since then. I thought I might just quickly update you on the role that ORC is playing in terms of COVID-19 and in terms of business as usual operations as well. So first of all, we have a number of responsibilities, as you will be aware. First of all, we have civil defence responsibilities for response, and we currently have approximately 30 staff who are embedded within our emergency coordination centre. That's operating 7 days a week, and we have been told to expect to operate that now for 3 months. We also have some staff deployed to assist MSD on welfare calls. And our role really is a welfare role. So we are providing provisions for food bank. We are responding to the community in terms of calls they make for welfare assistance. And we're very grateful to the Dunedin City Council for assisting us in that. And we also are responsible for all non-health response. So it's quite a significant load. And we have resourced up since we first activated the ECC, and believe we will in time continue to do that. We also have a fully fresh team on standby for any further emergency we should have, like a flood, for example. We're also operating essential services. Our essential services are limited really to those things that are necessary for the preservation of human health. So they include state of the environment monitoring of drinking water at source. They also include air monitoring in the key locations we have around Otago where we tend to have problems with air quality in wintertime. We also are running BAU. We only have 2 staff at the moment who are unable to work from home. The rest of our staff are working from home and working on BAU, or also working on other matters like preparing bids for the possible infrastructure investment that will be made as part of recovery for the response. The other role we play is we will at some point switch to more of a recovery focus, quite a different role to what we expect we usually play in recovery for an event like a flood. It'll be a long-term process, and I have met with the chief executives of the other Otago local authorities this morning to discuss the recovery structure. And within that structure, we will have a group recovery manager who will report up through the Joint Committee of Civil Defence into the Mayoral Forum. And also we have a number of Otago regional economic development staff who are now inputting into assessment around the impacts of COVID-19 and what recovery might look like. We're supporting that also with our own economist, Anne Young. And we're also planning a workshop for councillors on the 22nd of April to start discussing recovery, what that looks like, and some of the economic data that we've been able to pull together in terms of understanding impact. It's very important at this time that we have central government liaison and also that we are prepared and able to take advantage of the possible income streams or revenue streams to support shovel-ready projects and such like as we move through this phase. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Sarah. I've got questions from Alexa, from Kevin, and did I just see you holding your hand up? Forgotten the name. Carmen.
Yes, thank you.
Alexa, life doesn't change.
Hi, thanks for that, Sarah. I can see a lot of work's going into this. What I'm wondering is if there is a role for us to play in looking for to get people employed around the environmental work that we all know needs doing. The QLDC mayor has been in contact with me about this, and I'd like to think as an agent, that we would have be able to support communities while cleaning up our environment. Seems like there's a big opportunity there. So that's the first part. Can we work with our TAs? Are we looking to work with our territorial authorities towards a collective environmental economic response? And secondly, do we have any projects going up on Tuesday, the closing date for the government's infrastructure fund, or is that not really our role?
So in answer to your first question, there are a number of things that are happening around, not only just within our region, but also nationally within the regional sector, and also through other parts of government in relation to recovery, and particularly looking at those environmental projects or green projects, if you like. I know the Minister for Conservation has been talking about things like wilding pines and perhaps other biosecurity matters. We also have the what we call the ORED group in Otago, which is basically the Otago Economic Development staff from across TAs, and we're talking with them. I think one of the questions that we'll need to discuss further in a workshop is the kind of role that we want to play, and whether or not we are job makers or we play a supporting role in terms of supporting the TAs to do that who may be better placed. So there's some thinking there. Sorry, just remind me of your second question.
Do we have anything going up to the infrastructure fund by Tuesday?
Yes, we do, and I can share that with you. We have combined with the rest of the regional sector, and there's a considerable amount of work gone into looking at flood engineering in its entirety across the country and putting up a combined proposal as a consequence of that into the Crown Infrastructure funding potential. And also we are looking and speaking with CODC about the stock truck effluent disposal operation for Terrace and whether or not that might be something that could qualify.
Thank you. The next person was Kevin, followed by Carmen and Hilary.
Thanks. Yeah, Sarah, just really to get a picture out into the community is how many staff have we currently got involved in the COVID operation, either directly with civil defence or with other projects that you're working on? If you could even, yeah, thanks, Sarah.
So we have about 30 who are involved in civil defence. We've got about 5 who are involved with the Ministry of Social Development at the moment on those welfare calls. In addition to that, our engineers have been working up those proposals, both for terrace and also flood engineering. We have about another 30 who are performing essential services, and that's essential services under the reasonably tight definitions out of government. So we are, as I said, performing essential services in terms of how they relate to human health, and maintaining our monitoring networks for floods in particular, so that we are fully prepared for any kind of flood emergency or event. And in addition to that, there are various staff doing all manner of things that are related to COVID and a number of requests. I sit on the Society of Local Government Managers board, for example, and have been involved that way. There are national meetings on a fairly regular basis with the regional council CEs across the country, with the CEs from DOC and the Ministry for the Environment. They're happening weekly at the moment. And most of my executive are responding in some way to COVID-19. So I would say overall, probably up as much as almost half of our staff are involved in response in some way or preparation for recovery.
Thanks very much, Sarah. And look, just my thanks, especially for adapting to this situation, because it certainly is tough, but it's great to see staff have jumped on. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Carmen.
Thank you, Mrs. Gardner. I was just going to ask you, with our role through the welfare, you know, Otago is diverse in its nature and its cities. Is there any particular areas that have required more welfare support than others, please? Are you able to comment?
I don't have a breakdown in that way. What I can say is that I've been quite pleased with, I guess, what I would have said is quite a low number of calls. And I think the reason for that is because we have an awful lot of support groups in Otago and the like that have actually self-organised and gotten behind the welfare response. So I think we are fortunate in that we've got very good networks in Otago that are supporting that welfare response.
Thanks, Carmen. Thanks, Sarah. Just before I ask Hilary and then followed by Michael Deaker, could somebody of the administration try and ring Andrew and just check where he is and what's happened. Thank you.
We're working with him now, councillor.
Okay.
We have IT online with him.
Thank you, love.
It's on chat.
Thank you. Hilary.
With the us getting together with other councils and things and looking for projects that the government might like to sponsor, I would feel better about getting regular updates of some description about what's going on with the with our proposals. I like the idea of having proposals, and I probably like most of the ones that people are thinking of and things, but I feel that we should actually be part of that process. And because of where we are at the moment and with council meetings and things, the best way of doing that to me would be, so if we received things, if Sarah could send us regular updates saying this is what our joint thinking is at the moment about what we're thinking of applying for or whatever, and then when it came close to actually thinking of applying, to send around something to us all and get our views on it, because I'm not comfortable about just having things done out there in the ether that we don't even know about until afterwards. I don't want to report afterwards. I want to know while it's happening, and then I want to be consulted at least at some level before we push the go button to do something joint with other people. Is that possible?
Thank you, Councillor Calvert. Yes, it is possible, and I have pushed out information to you, in particular the Crown Infrastructure letter that came from Mark Binns, and that is under the work which we have done under the flood scheme work. It's also important to understand that we're not operating in terms of looking at new work when we're making these bids necessarily. We're working within the boundaries of the work plan that's already set, and because they are the most shovel ready projects to go. So at the moment they're not particularly interested in that respect for anything that's going to take 6 months or more to make shovel ready. We haven't done anything at all yet in terms of making any commitments or any bids in relation to other green schemes or anything that might come about. And that's why we wanted to meet with you on the 22nd of April in a workshop to have that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Henry. Michael Deaker, followed by...
Yeah, thanks, Marion. Going back to Alexa's initial comments on this, 4 of us, that's me and Kevin and Gary and Carmen, had been looking at the $323,000 worth of eco fund applications that we have to decide on by next Thursday. So some of us won't have much of an Easter in terms of doing anything else. In any event, I'm just bringing that up because clearly there is, as ever, a real enthusiasm across our region for getting out and doing environmental stuff, which is what Alexa and Sarah were, and Hilary to some extent, were all talking about. Now, I'm suggesting, therefore, that the council could consider running a supplementary round of an eco-fund type thing where we have more money put into it to attract bigger and more organised community groups than just the little patchy ones that occasionally come into the eco-fund. Including TLAs who might like to apply to it and supplement their own money, and really get stuck into the environmental projects that Alexa was referring to. So there's a suggestion that we as a council consider running an additional round of something that looks very like the Eco Fund, more money in it, working jointly with the TLAs, suggesting they could as well become partners with community organisations to work on environmental projects in their authority areas. I know Michael Laws has been giving some thought to such a thing as well, so he might like to comment, but I put forward that as a suggestion for us to discuss at our next meeting.
Sarah, do you want to comment?
I'm certainly not opposed to it. Obviously, there would be some considerations. First of all, my first question would be, how would we fund that? And and I guess there are a number of options for doing that. Really, I suppose what I was hoping that we could do in the workshop was have a look about our strategic opportunities in terms of whether or not we do things like the Eco Fund, or whether or not we can perhaps assist in other ways that would then allow us to perhaps assist some of the workforce that has been displaced through COVID. So, for example, what we're hoping to bring to you, if it's at all possible, is some analysis of just who are the workers that have been impacted by COVID, and what is the likelihood that they, for example, would substitute the work that they've done for green projects. Because I think what I'm slightly concerned about is that we might offer up a number of green projects, but not necessarily be meeting the needs of some of the urban people who have also suffered hardship and unemployment as a consequence. So I think there's a strategic and principled conversation we need to have, but of course things such as Councillor Deaker suggests should all be on the table.
And they should be on the table at the meeting, at the workshop meeting.
They certainly should be up for discussion at the workshop, yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sarah. Gretchen.
Yeah, I think you've answered really, but another thing that obviously the community will be interested in, and it's not directly us, but an environmental issue that we're all facing is with Three Waters, and particularly sewage, but others as well, and an opportunity for us to think broader than initially perhaps we might in terms of what we could do to not only support TAs, but is there actually a role for us to do something as well? So yeah, we have a workshop coming up and that's good. Thank you.
So it looks people, oh, sorry, Kate.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. It's busy times. Appreciate what you're doing. I'm sorry, I was trying to assist Andrew when Alexa's question was answered about the infrastructure, and you said the terrace effluent thing, and what was the other one? Was that the flood works?
Yes, it is flood works. That's right. So program flood works that we can undertake that are shovel ready for the sort of next 6 months or so.
And what I highlighted, thank you, that's great. The one other question I had, and it relates to the paper in 8.2, and I agree with Hilary that we should be getting an oversight of these before we agree to them, but my understanding is that matters for the wharf, I think at Frankton, were fairly well advanced, and I'm just wondering, has that been added by QLDC or by us as a potential shovel-ready project?
So I'm sorry, Councillor, I don't know at this stage, and that is why I've spoken to the CEs today about organising a regional structure so that we can be far more across what everybody is doing and make sure that we're maximising the benefits for Otago.
Okay. Is there some expectation that this that there may be other rounds for the infrastructure, or is it just the 14th because it's a very short turnaround?
I don't necessarily think that all that will be offered up is the infrastructure fund. That is what we're currently working on at the moment. I know, as I said, that the Minister for Conservation has been talking quite keenly about other things, but we're yet to hear anything official from government about other offerings.
Okay, thank you.
I just make a comment from my other area, Heritage, is that there was, the CEO of Heritage was given exactly 12 hours last night, but or 24 hours, midnight to midday, to prepare a paper for Cabinet on trying to get into one of those bigger groupings of money. So people are out there making some pretty fast decisions, but things really have to be, for the immediate ones, shovel ready. All the plans got to be in place. You know, I couldn't have an idea and say, let's fix up the Christchurch provincial buildings because they ain't shovel ready. Do you see what I mean? And so that actually sits very much behind what we're doing.
Andrew's here, is he?
Yes, I am.
Where are you, Andrew? Hello, Andrew.
On the phone, sorry.
All we've done, Andrew, is the minutes and the chair's report, and we've just had a pretty good discussion around utilising and building plans for recovery, but it's a prelim to a meeting that we're going to have in 2 weeks' time, less than 2 weeks' time, a workshop.
Good as gold.
As a
Good as
council.
gold. I do have a question for you, Madam Chair, in relation to your report.
My report, yes. Okay, love.
Is that where we're at?
We're at the CE's report, but you can ask a question of mine. I'm in a state of shock.
Okay, if I can then, it was just related to item 8. I see that you'd met with Mark
Mark
Patterson.
Patterson. I did too.
Yes.
And it was about Falls Dam.
Just wanted to know, you know, exploring the future of Falls Dam, just what was the discussion sort of based on? It'd be just interesting to know.
Mark is very much in favour of something happening to Falls Dam. And so, and I said, I was neutral on it. What has to happen is that it's not going to be an easy one to be done immediately, because there are people opposed to raising it. I think Doc is, but I'm not positive on that one. So it wouldn't be a shovel-ready thing, but it's a prospect out there in the future. And that's really what he came to talk to me about. And because he is New Zealand First, I presume he's talking to his particular minister.
Okay, thank you.
Marion, Brian here.
Brian.
I haven't got my screen sorted out, so I'm not sure why, but just your definition of shovel ready. It just seems to me construction of a wharf, construction of Falls Dam, flood banks. It doesn't seem to me there'll be a lot of shoveling with any of them in terms of Joe Average. They will be specialist construction companies that actually might be busy enough with their forward work orders, government or not. So, like, what is the definition of shovel ready? I mean, it goes back to what Sarah was saying before. Who are the people that have been displaced? And I assume that when they say shovel ready, that they are literally almost talking about a type of work where Joe Average could pick up a shovel or something simple and safe, and be, you know, like planting a plant,
like eco-fund projects.
Yeah.
But the reports are often the first thing.
Yeah, whoa, I've got an order here. Can I go to Sarah to answer that question?
Certainly. The shovel-ready projects that are being talked about at the moment under infrastructure, they relate to projects over $10 million, and they are largely, construction type projects like flood banks and those sorts of things. Not necessarily talking about planting and wilding pines and those sorts of things just at the moment. They do have to be ready to go within 6 months. So basically you almost have to have your business case ready and potentially your procurement done. But I can also tell you that some of the figures that I have received suggest that up to 30% of the construction industry could actually be impacted by COVID. So, so those people will and have been impacted.
Can I just add something to that? And just from heritage, is that it's normally work that has got all its resource consents and that has all its plans. It's ready to go. And you are dead right, Brian. Some of it is for expert companies who are running out of work right at the moment and to employ people. You know, I think about the people who are rebuilding St. Paul's and Wellington. They are expert architects and archaeologists and things like that. That's one group of people, and this builds them a line of work. So that's where it was. Okay, can I move that these report, what is it, that the report be received? Can I have a seconder, please? Alexa is a seconder, Marion was a mover. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Carried. Can we move then to the next item on the agenda, which is action, status of council resolutions. Are there any questions about any of these? Okay, do I see any hands? God, no, I don't. There being no questions, then we move to the next item on the agenda, which is, oh, I've got this wrong. consider establishment of Port Otago liaison group and appoint members. And this paper was written by Amanda. Amanda, do you want to talk to this paper? Amanda Verco. Amanda?
Yeah, I'm here. I will let Nick speak to the paper if he's got anything to add. Actually, I'm their name only.
Okay, thank you. Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I am. I'm just starting my video. There you go. Can you see me and hear me?
Yeah, unfortunately. Sorry, Nick. Off you go.
Right. Well, I can take the paper as read. As you'll see, the key thing with this is that the board is currently operating with 5 members, given that, as per the constitution, they can't operate with less than 5. There's a bit more urgency in the current situation to make sure that we increase back to the usual number of 6 directors. So we need to go through a recruitment process, and it's recommended that the best way to do that is to re-establish the Port Otago liaison group and allow them to run the process. So that's what the paper is recommending, that occurs.
Thank you, Kate. You've got your hand up.
Thank you. Two questions. I'm intrigued that we have only 1 rural membership, and I'm not sure how this membership came about. So the first question is, should it reflect better the Otago region and the representation and the supply chain that really makes the port strong? And was any consideration given to that? And the second question is, and I'm not sure what the answer is here, so it is very much a question, is understanding, is having the CEO on this committee as opposed to an attendance a normal thing with this Port Otago liaison?
Nick, do you want to answer?
Basically the proposed membership followed how the membership had been put together previously. So previously the CE was a member of the working group, and then the membership had traditionally been the chair and the chair of Finance and Corp. It also had the deputy chair on previously, but because we've got co-chairs of finance, we put both of those on, and then previous trienniums, this group has then had 1 other councillor. So there was no, your point about considering, the rural breakdown, that wasn't a factor previously, and so we were just sort of largely trying to put it together, aligning to how the practice had happened in the past. So, and in the past it was 4 councillors.
Hilary, thank you. Hilary? Let me see.
I wonder whether, in light of what Kate's just said about rural urban split or something, whether it might be a good end in wanting to be more collegial and spreading the load differently. I wonder whether Kevin could be the chair of that committee, which would, because I don't think he's overstretched in other areas. Kevin, are you? Just because that would give a more of a rural, that would sort of give a rural balance, if you like. Thoughts?
Gretchen?
Just having been on that committee before for a number of years, I'm just wondering whether or not yourself, Councillor Hobbs, whether or not actually there's a role for you in that liaison group. It's an important relationship with the port, and for example, appointing new directors to the board is actually quite important. So yeah, my screen's gone blank, so hopefully people can still hear me.
We can still hear you.
I don't know why. Sorry about that, but yeah, something to consider whether or not the chair should actually be involved.
So Hilary's suggesting that Kevin chair, and that takes my place as chair. Kate saying that she wants another rural person?
No, I just asked the question. I'm not saying I want that. I'm just asking that question, sorry.
Okay. And then I see Carmen's hand up.
I would, yeah, through the chair, I just say I would support. I think it would be beneficial if Councillor Malcolm did become the chair. I think there's a lot he can offer, and I think that's a good balance, and I would support that idea.
Councillor Malcolm, how's your dad?
Old.
Right, okay. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I really don't see that as a worry.
That's all right. That's okay, love. It's all right. And it wouldn't be a worry in perception either?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've bumped into Kevin Winders, since I've been on, and that's never raised itself. And I'm a different operator.
Okay, love. I'm quite happy to stand aside for that. I get I get regular calls from the chair of the board to me, and I will presume that they would continue as chair to chair. But if you want that to happen, that's perfectly okay. So would somebody like to move that way? Hilary?
I would move that way, and I wasn't, just incidentally, Gretchen, Marion was on it, that the proposal was that Marion be on as chair. And so I would be proposing for Marion to still be on there, because I think the chair absolutely should be on there. I'm just suggesting that the chair of that committee would be Kevin. So that's my motion. I move that those 5, with including Kevin as chair rather than Marion, since she's relaxed about it too.
Okay, moved Hilary, seconded Carmen. Did you get that? We approve the establishment of a Port Otago liaison group with the proposed membership as outlined, but with Kevin Malcolm as the chair instead of Marion. That's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Can I use those same 2 people to move and second the motion to receive this report? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Aye.
Thank you. Can we now move to the next thing on the agenda, which is Lake Wakatipu Public Water Ferry Service Consultation. Now, on this one, I will try and remember to do, when we come to the motions, to actually do it by, what do you call it? When you Division, thank you. Okay, so Gary, are you around? Gary Maloney? Yes, I think I can see you. Gary, you've got a whole lot of plants behind you. Yeah, off you go. Would you like to explain this? Is it Gary or Gavin? Oops, no, not Gary Kelleher, Gary Maloney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the paper was drafted some time ago, so it was pre-COVID. It hasn't changed a lot since before then. About the only differences from what you had previously had circulated and now relates to the fact that Go Orange ceased trading or ceased operating the service on the 23rd of March, and we've updated the risks a little bit to pick up on what's happened with COVID. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions from anybody? Okay, I've got Kate's hand, then Hilary's hand, then Brian's hand, and then Alexa's hand. Go for it. Kate.
Thanks, Gary. And I foreshadowed and sent you an email. I hope you've received it. An additional consultation point. Now, at the moment, just with clarity, the proposed trial starts in January 2021.
That's correct.
And this is going out through QLDC's annual plan consultation as well for 110,000 from that council.
Through you, Madam Chair. So we've had contact with QLDC with respect to the cost share. I can't answer that. It's in the annual plan consultation or not. Don't know.
Okay. Thanks. Given COVID and what I think has been the area most affected by the reduction in tourism. What are your, running a trial now that may be set up to fail, would you still consider that a constructive thing to do at such cost?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the previous papers have noted that a significant proportion of the current patronage up to when the service stopped were visitors, about 75%. And so initially running the trial will depend on how quickly I think Queenstown recovers in terms of picking up that patronage. I should note the service is not running for a while. The Kelvin Peninsula still has access to a bus service that is continuing to operate. So it's not like the peninsula is missing out in terms of those choices.
Okay, and last question, if I may. Would it be difficult to add to the brochure already developed a indication of whether people would like the trial in 2021, 2022 or 2023?
No, it's so the consultation that's proposed is primarily an online one, and so it's a matter of changing the, we'll say, website, and have talked with communications earlier this morning and believe that's an easy fix, easy addition to make.
You had your hand up, Gavin, before I call Hilary. Gavin?
Yes, Madam Chair, just in response to Councillor Wilson's first question, just noting that the decision you're making today is a decision to consult, and then Council has further decisions to make around the annual plan, going to procurement, and then making a decision on the contract. So those are the times when you would make decisions about whether the timing is right to proceed to the trial.
Hilary, thank you, Gavin. Hilary?
My question has been, I think, partially answered, but I'm not sure whether for completeness. If we're consulting now and we can just add in the, would you like it now, or with the possibility of delay, I think that would be useful consultation-wise, because sort of what you might ideally do is say, starting 6 months after tourism might be starting again or whatever, but consulting with the time frame possibly delayed, and if it turns out that the world hasn't improved enough on time, that would be useful. So when Gary says that that can be done, can we ask that that is done when we're consulting?
Can see you, Michael. Thank you, Hilary. It goes Brian, Alexa, and then Michael.
Yeah, a lot of the points I was going to raise have been discussed, but my bottom line is that the trial should only go ahead, it seems to me, if we've got reasonable tourist numbers, and obviously it's in the future, 2021 January, that's being talked about. And Gavin has pointed out that there's a number of decision dates. What is the latest date, can I ask, that we have to make a decision on this matter? And can I say I agree with Hilary, it's not about arbitrary, January 2021, January 2022. It's, are we post-COVID? Are the tourist numbers back to where we expected them to be, where they need to be? It was always a very marginal situation as it was. So anyway, my question to Gavin is roughly when is that date, if all things carry on as they're supposed to, that we make that final decision regarding a contract?
Gavin, not Gavin, Gary.
I can answer that, Madam Chair. Look, the final decision that Council makes in respect of a contract will be later this calendar year, but you would not want to enter a procurement process unless there was a genuine intent to form a contract. So that's probably a quarter of the way through the next financial year.
Thank you. Alexa.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things. First, I don't think this is about tourism. It's about transport networks. I think that I really note Gavin's points. We don't really need to concern ourselves too much with the start date at this point. I think that we were trying to get this trial up and running so that we didn't lose them. Part of the timing of the trial was about the momentum that was already built, and we were agreeing to fund Go Orange until the trial could start. And obviously Go Orange is no longer offering the service, so we lose some of that advantage now. but it is about building the transport networks. And by ferry, it's around about 10 minutes across the lake to Queenstown, and by bus, it's about an hour. So as we enter a new normal, the question is going to be whether there is traffic between Queenstown Peninsula, Kelvin Peninsula and Queenstown and back. And if there is, then it's a natural, efficient transport network. And that's where our thinking should be. And if we have the opportunity to have this trial established as we get back into that new normal, we may be able to encourage people to not get into their cars at all. And the impact on rates is an impact, of course there is. It's less than $9 for most people, even within the area of most benefit. And for the hotels, it's around $58. It offers big value for users. I just did a quick calculation. A round trip from Cedar Place at the other end of Kelvin Peninsula to town and back is about 30 kilometres, and at 71 cents a kilometre, that's $21 a round trip. We're offering that for around about $4. If we can afford to put it on, it's an incredibly valuable link in the transport network, which is what we're talking about, regardless of where the tourism industry sits. So I think we need to keep that perspective.
Right, I think you wanting to respond, it's Kevin. But the first person is Michael Laws, and then Kevin. Michael, can you unmute yourself?
Sure, thanks. Thank you. Is there currently a service operating now?
No, it ceased.
Right. So you see, I guess my problem, Alexa, is I'm happy to, any consultation is good consultation, but I guess my problem is I don't even know if these people are going to survive the current economic morass. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it, Alexa? And we might be asking a consultation of a service that simply won't be existing when things get back to normal. So I'm keen to keep that consultation as broad as possible around timing. There is also lots of imponderables in here. Mayor Bolt is saying that he's very keen on winter tourism commencing. I note while we've been on air that on the 20th of April and before our next meeting, the government will make an announcement about whether or not lockdown is going to be extended or it's going to cease, and new applications which might allow domestic tourism. So I guess I'm really wanting to be guided by QLDC and by the residents and businesses and commercial entities that are in that area. And that's why I support consultation carrying on. I wouldn't like to see it truncated in any way. It's just that I want to pick up Kate's point, maybe extend that into the future in terms of what are the options that we've got. Are you happy with that, Alexa?
I'm happy with all of this, Michael. I'm happy with everybody's thinking on this because I think everybody is thinking. All I want to do is make sure that we don't concentrate on tourists. It's not about tourists. It's about a transport network. And I'm not sure. I'm in two minds whether the consultation should be pushed out or not. I'd rather be guided by Gavin and Gary on that. Yes, the service ceased on the 23rd of March, I think. And there's nobody moving. Everyone's in lockup, so that's normal. So it's obviously not an essential service because the essential service would have remained. The bus does provide the essential service. Yeah, so I am in two minds. I take on your concerns absolutely, and I'd rather be I'd like to be guided by Gary and Gavin, and I totally agree with you. A lot of it is about the QLDC and what they want. I have had brief conversations, and I don't know where it's going to end up in their annual plan, but I think that they do want this service.
I've got Kevin on the speaking list and Michael Deaker. Kevin?
Yeah, look, I think the service long term, as Alexa does, makes pretty good sense. But I just in this, and it needs to be consulted upon. It would be more around the wording that the consultation doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go being immediately. If that rate impost or if the demand really isn't going to be there and if things are under such stress. So it's just being very cautious that by consulting now that we're not going to scare people off because of what has happened. That, and I know it sounds small amounts, but if the rate impost is the reason they're saying no to the service, I wouldn't like that to be, because long term I think it's going to be a necessity. Just careful wording around it would be the key.
Thank you, Kevin. Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Marion. The thing that hasn't been raised to now, and I had a bit of a discussion with Alexa about this earlier today, and I was grateful for that, Alexa, is that Jim Bolt has made it very clear where he stands on rate increases for his residents this year. And the success or otherwise of any trial at any time is going to be dependent on his council, Mayor Bolt's council, doing quite a lot of capex on wharves. And he may well see that as something he simply does not want to do. And if that is the case, and we haven't got an operator anyway, what's the point of even considering this for the next couple of years?
That's right.
So I had proposed tentatively to Alexa that we go for letting this motion lie on the table. Let's not make a decision at all about this consultation until it becomes a matter of realistic issue. At the moment, it's not a realistic issue. There's practically nobody who wants to travel anywhere around Frankton Arm. So why on earth should we consider any kind of trial? Hilary, you're being a pain.
No.
Oh, no,
Malcolm,
sorry.
Michael, he's trying to attract my attention.
I know she is.
To speak.
That was nothing about you, Michael.
She certainly got my attention.
Sorry.
So I would like us to consider that we simply let this motion lie. Well, there's enough consultation going on through annual plans. Why should we muddy the water even more with this proposition, which doesn't have a realistic base at this stage?
Thanks, Michael. I've got up here, I've got Sarah, and then I've got Hilary, and have I got you again, Alexa? That'll be your final go. And do I see a hand from Carmen? Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Point of order, and in a gentle way. If Michael's just moved a procedural motion, or not, I'm not quite sure if he moved it.
No, I didn't go as far as that, Kate.
Okay,
I suggested that's a matter we should consider.
Okay, sorry.
This discussion is useful and it's interesting, but I don't think it's going to lead to anything real.
Darling, please don't do procedural motions on this on my first time chairing on this, but never mind. Sarah, followed by Hilary, followed by Alexa.
Thank you. I suppose I just wanted to try and help in response to Councillor Deaker's comments. Part of our role and part of the thinking that we are quite keen to do in the upcoming workshop about recovery is some of the thinking about whether or not we support some things financially where others perhaps are now in the position where they can't. So I guess what I'm flagging to you as a part of your thinking on this, I wouldn't necessarily just assume that QLDC will be in the same position that they are or were before COVID, and perhaps that there is a role for us to play that is quite different because of the benefits of economic stimulus you might get as a consequence. So all I'm saying is that's part of the kind of conversation that we're keen to have with you on the 22nd. But I don't think that necessarily the way we've thought of things traditionally and the traditional way we've partnered up and split finances might be the way that we need to think about the future.
Hilary, thank you, Sarah. Hilary.
Sorry, my question was only, and I apologise to Michael Deaker for what I was doing, is how do we, I presume you, Marion, can see Andrew and Carmen enough to see their hands up, can you? That was my question. How do you know whether Andrew or Carmen or Gary or Kevin?
Carmen I can see because she waves at me, but I can't see from Andrew, and Andrew could do it by I presume.
I'll just speak up when I need to.
Yeah, okay, love. All
Just do it, Brian.
Okay. But Andrew, what you can do is you can go on to your participant list and it's the whatever it's called, the thing there that says you want to raise your hands, because I see that, and I see Gary's just put his up. So is that all right, Hilary?
Yeah, I just wanted to know whether, because I couldn't see them, that you could, so long as you can, Marion.
It's okay, dear. So the next
You can
person
see
I
them,
have on my
Hilary, in the
list.
participant list. You can see everyone who's got their hand up.
Yep. So the next person I've got is Alexa, and I've now also got Gary Callaghan. Sorry, Gary, for calling your full name.
Okay, very quickly, I'd like to hear again from Gavin and Gary about the length of time from consultation to actual provision of service. And I'd like to raise the issue that councils are often tempted to stop investing in times of crisis. It's hard to see your way through, and we pay for that later. And we've seen the impact of that many times.
It was highly exciting. Thank you, Alexa. That wasn't your comment about that, but it was something that was coming back.
I think I was on
Gary Callaghan.
Gary's, not Gary's, Andrew's telephone as he was getting online. Hear all that?
Yeah.
Okay, Gary Callaghan.
Thank you. Okay, I actually would. I support the comments of Michael Deaker, or Councillor Deaker. I think things have changed. This was at a time when there was a very different situation to what we have now. We have to be prudent and careful and look at where we best spend our money. I don't think we're going to get good consultation just now. And I think it's a very sensible suggestion to leave it sitting on the table. We're not making it go away, but we would come back to it at a time in the future when we can get a more practical outcome, I believe.
Okay, just before I start taking us through the votes, I'll ask Gavin and the other Gary to comment. But I just want to ask this, because this is something that's particularly come out of QLDC, shouldn't we be talking with QLDC about stopping this program? Wouldn't you think that would be... Hello, I can see Andrew.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that.
Right. Sorry for the people who are viewing this. I just have this feeling, and I'd sort of like to hear some comments from Gavin and Gary on that before throwing this all out with the bathwater, which I don't know whether that is going to happen or not. Before doing that, I just have a feeling that we should be probably talking to QLDC. Can I hand it over to Gavin and to Gary Maloney? Yeah, Maloney. Sorry, Gary.
Madam Chair, this decision is an enabler of a longer process with subsequent decisions, as I've outlined. We can't go to procurement unless it's in the annual plan, and we can't have it in the annual plan unless you embark on this consultation today, unless you choose to modify the annual plan at a future date. The other thing is that the matters that are being raised by council will be considered as part of the hearings panel decision making on how it deals with the feedback from consultation. Doing the consultation now allows the community to consider this service in conjunction with all of the other matters in the annual plan and weigh all those things up together.
Okay, is everyone clear? I'd like to proceed to the votes, and let's see, we've got 4 votes here. The first one is approves for consultation.
Apologies. Sorry, I had moved in addition to that, and I'm happy to move all of them together, but with that addition. I foreshadowed it in an email. Apologies, Mary.
Madam Chair.
Just hang on a minute, Kevin. I'm trying to think my way through this at the moment.
Yeah.
Because this is my problem, Kate. What did your foreshadowing say?
So what I would do is add in a new 3, which would be approves for consultation a 2001 or a 2001 to 22 or a 22 to 23 year start for the trial. Thank you.
sorry, love, there was something fell down then and I lost the 2021, but can you just go through those dates again?
So it's now on 5 on our screen, I think. Thanks, Liz, for sharing that.
Yes, it's extraordinarily small. That's all.
So it's seeking submissions on whether the trial takes place in January 2021 as per the paper or the report, or included in the long-term plan for January 2022 or January 2023. Now, I'm happy to move all of those together and then speak to them if I get a seconder.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Hillary. I'm just thinking, Kate, and help me out. If we move yours first, does that, it doesn't prevent the other ones, does it?
They're all consistent with each other.
Okay.
So the reason I'm doing this is that I absolutely support, and I'm what Alexa's saying about alternative modes. I think even in a New Zealand-centric tourism market in Queenstown, or even just local, people will love having a ferry service and to try something different. However, I am concerned that funding may not be provided in the next year by QLDC or by others, even the NZTA, given their constraints, and that we should give people who have consulted on this hugely and with huge amounts of energy at the previous stage a chance to say, do they want that trial to be now or in a year or the year later? Right. And in that way, empower them to make that choice about what they see their area looking like in those timeframes. Because if we don't do that and people just don't want to have another commitment financially, then we lose that consultation process because the only option they've got to do is to say no to it. And that is not what I think the people want, but we need to give them that other choice.
So I'm accepting the mover is Kate and the seconder was
Hillary.
It was Carmen. Oh no, it was Hillary, sorry.
Hillary.
It was Hillary. Hillary, do you want to speak to the motions?
No, not really.
Okay. Is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition to the motions? And remember, it's one speech only at this stage.
I'd like to hear the impacts of that. If there's an impact. I don't understand if there's any impact on Gavin and Gary's processes or not.
Gavin or Gary would like to comment?
Gavin here. I don't think there is, although you're restricting the feedback to 3 named stated dates. I just wonder whether or not a more open question and seeking feedback on when the public would like it to commence would have a bit more flexibility.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak? Is that your hand, Brian? Brian, if you got your oh gosh, sorry. Can somebody take me off that shared screen because it's completely bugging up. Right. Okay. Boom. Brian, we haven't got your voice on. Where are you? Can anyone see Brian?
Yes, I can see Brian, and he's got his microphone on mute. There he is.
Oh, he's got.
Go for it, Brian.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can now.
Yeah, I was just following on from Gavin. These arbitrary dates in the future don't mean a lot to me, and I wonder whether they will to Joe Average as well. And just whether some consideration, I mean, one of the options might be, as Hillary had originally said, maybe 6 months post, COVID-19, or when tourism numbers are back up, or some other option as opposed to arbitrary future dates. Maybe I leave that to staff discretion, but I just raised that.
Hillary?
I would be happy as a seconder, and I don't know whether Kate would be, to have that changed by putting something like when you would like that to be, for example, and offering those 3 times and seeing just a more open version, but giving some options.
Which is pretty much what Gavin suggested.
Yeah.
Somebody like to give me some wording because I am getting very confused.
No,
Sorry.
I'm not mindful to change my motion, and I'm happy to explain that in my right of reply.
Okay, she does not change. So Hilary, if that's not been accepted by the mover, the mover's motion stands. Any other speakers to or against this motion? Okay, it's going to be moved, but could you, just before we move it, could you, Liz, read out what you think the collective motions are?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. That the council approves for consultation option S1 as outlined in this paper. Number 2, approves for consultation option F1 as outlined. Agrees that the proposed introduction of the trial ferry service and the funding required to enable that to take place is not material or significant. Approves the consultation approach and next steps as outlined in this paper. And Kate's amendment seeking submissions on whether the trial takes place January 2021 as per report or included in the long-term plan for January 2022 or January 2023. Councillor Wilson.
Okay. Right of reply, Kate.
Thank you. And apologies, I've written up something slightly differently. And so I am happy to amend it to the 21-22 year and the 22-23 year rather than January. So if Hilary, you're happy with that. My reason for keeping it in here is if you make it open-ended, we don't necessarily fit it into a plan. And I don't want to leave this open. I want this consultation to have an end purpose that gets it into a specific plan. I think sorted as much as they can be in by 2023, and we'll have a better idea then. But if we just open it up and don't have an end date, it won't get back in. And that's why I'm quite specific that it should be for a particular plan.
Thank you, Kate. I'm now going to call a vote, which is division. So Hilary, which way are you voting? For this or not?
For.
Michael Deaker?
Madam Chair, I can't vote unless I have an answer to the question, and it has to probably come from Gavin or Gary. How does this work at all if there's nobody to trial it? And there won't be anybody to trial it if there's no visitors.
Gavin?
Through Madam Chair, we really won't know the appetite of the market or even what the market looks like until we go to procurement. Even if council decides to proceed and go to a tender process, it still relies on someone wanting to do it and then agreeing mutually acceptable terms and conditions. So that remains an uncertainty all the way through until that end point. But we won't know that unless we proceed through a procurement process. It's not something you can answer definitively now. And the other thing is we are looking for an 18-month trial that does give an operator some certainty. We may find in the course of negotiation that is too short a trial. So those are the uncertainties that get sorted out through a procurement process.
Okay.
Thank you. And having considered all that, I will vote for the motions.
Thank you. Alexa Forbes?
For.
Marion Hobbs? For. Carmen Hope?
For.
Gary Kelleher?
For.
Michael Laws?
I can't vote for this on the basis that I don't know what the QLDC think, so I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Kevin? Malcolm?
I'm similar. I think we really need to know what the QLDC is doing, so I'll just abstain at this stage.
Andrew Noon?
In favour.
Thank you. Gretchen?
For.
Brian Scott?
For, and I encourage the council to talk to QLDC.
Kate Wilson?
Aye. Surprise, surprise.
So Liz, the votes are?
10-0 carried with 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much. Okay, can we now move to the next part of the, the notify the plan change 8.3 of the agenda. I would like to handle this way, and I would like to discuss the call-in and what's happened. I would like an explanation from from staff member about what a call-in is and what happens now. Then questions to staff. Then I want to open up whether you want to discuss plans 1 and 8. And if you do, then let's have the context and burning questions on plan detail. And maybe, if you want it, a vote, including Andrew's proposition. Is that procedure meet people's needs?
Yep.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead with the ministers called in plans 1, 7 and 8. And I've just heard some references sometimes. You know that 1 and 8 is together makes the omnibus plan, and 7 was the deemed permits and the water consents. All right. Can I have an explanation from which staff member would like to take us very clearly with what happens in a call-in? Because we've got 2 different call-ins here. Can you first make the differentiation? Which staff member is doing this?
I believe Peter Considine is just.
You okay,
I think
Peter?
that falls to me, Madam Chair. The Minister has called in both Plan Change 7 and Plan Change 8/Plan Change 1. He's done it as 2 separate directions because that's the way the plan changes were developed and because of the stages they had reached. What happens next?
Just before you do, sorry, Peter, just before you do, 1 has been passed and 1 hasn't. Is there any difference?
Adopted.
Yeah.
One plan change has been adopted by the council and publicly notified. The other change hasn't. It makes no difference to the minister's call-in.
Thank you.
So what happens next in terms of both plan changes? The next step is for the Environmental Protection Authority to work out its personnel, a timeline, and provide an estimate of costs to the council, and also to set out what they call a memorandum of understanding between the EPA and the council, which will set out some procedural things, some issues around data that we will provide or can provide to the EPA, and how much professional help or advice we can give them, and who the person that they should contact is. That will be put together by the EPA and sent to the council. It's a procedural step, but it needs to be done. After that, and I say after that's been done, the EPA will notify the 2 directions that the minister has issued. The notification of those directions constitutes notification of the plan changes. So the water permits plan change will be notified again, and Plan Change 8/Plan Change 1, the omnibus, will be notified for the first time and submissions called for. All the existing submissions and all submissions that will have been lodged prior to the 5th of May in respect of the water permits plan change will still be live and will be given to the EPA, and anybody who's put in a submission at that time or up until the 5th of May has the right to be heard by the Environment Court. Equally, anybody who hasn't put one in prior to the 5th of May has a second opportunity to put in a submission and be heard by the Environment Court. After the submissions period closes, which I'm anticipating will be longer than the normal 20 working days. My discussions with the EPA are saying they will go at least another 10 and possibly even longer. After those submissions close, the process is that there's a summary of the submissions put together by the EPA. That summary is publicly notified and the call for further submissions is made. Further submissions are generally submissions in opposition to or support of a submission that has already been made. It's not an opportunity for new material to be raised. After that, the matter will go to the Environment Court, and the Environment Court will establish a hearing procedure. I can't tell you what that will be because we don't know whether it's going to be the full court or a judge sitting alone. We don't know whether they will go for a pre-circulation of evidence or whether they will deal with it in the way they used to, and that is you just rock up with your evidence on the appointed day. What I can say are two things that are really important. That hearing is likely to be either in Dunedin or in, say, Alexandra, or split between the two. It might also be in Queenstown. The Environment Court will determine that, but they will get advice from the EPA on where this should happen, and that might also include advice from this council on where the communities of interest are, meaning where the court will sit. The court has a direction, if I can call it that, to sit as close to where the matter is domiciled as is possible. Now, they have sat in Alexandra, they have sat in Wanaka, they have sat in Queenstown, they have certainly sat in Oamaru, they have sat in Dunedin, and I, to be honest, can't recall whether they've
sat in Cromwell.
Clutha. But the point is, they will sit as close as possible. The second thing is, for these hearings, it is not necessary for a submitter to have counsel represent them. It is quite acceptable and perfectly possible for submitters to turn up on their own as they would in front of a council hearing. So, after all of that, council's role at that hearing is to provide advice and information as requested. It generally forms, it takes the form of expert evidence, and it will be a summary of where the council's position is, why we're doing the plan change, and what its response to all the submissions might be. Having heard from all the parties, the Environment Court goes away and deliberates and issues a decision. The only opportunity after that for appeals is to the High Court on points of law. In other words, did the court, the Environment Court, apply the wrong tests? After the period for appeals to the High Court has passed, essentially the plan change is operative, and it's up to the council then to make it operative. Now that's the procedure in a nutshell as to where we go from here.
Okay, lovelies. If anyone has any questions on the procedure, remember we're not debating the plans. We're just talking about the procedure. I can see your hand, Michael. I can see Hillary. Go, Michael. Laws.
Thank you. Mr. Constantine, can you please tell me when Plan Change 8 becomes operative from the ORC's point of view? Is it from the moment that, taking through the procedure you've just given, that the EPA notifies the two directions? Is that the time?
No, the plan change will have legal effect the day it is publicly notified or the direction is notified. And that's because the plan change concerns fresh water.
Okay, so that's the day in which our staff will be effectively implementing both plan changes in their day-to-day processing of applications.
Correct, along with the operative plan.
Right, so is it possible for us to get some detail as to how that's going to be implemented? Because it's one thing, as you know, to have a generic plan. It's quite another to have a level of detail. So when will we be working that out? About now?
We already have.
Sorry,
what for plans?
Anita,
Who said that?
No, can I have Anita, please?
Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Councillor Laws, through you, Madam Chair, there is an implementation plan already been developed. So we've been working closely with the consents team. Obviously, they're the key ones to implement this. There is also a particular part of the law that's really important, and it's section 20A, which essentially gives any land use activity that is going from being a permitted activity into a consented regime 6 months beyond the operative date before that rule takes effect. So some of the rules will have legal effect, but don't actually come into full effect until 6 months beyond operative.
So when will that, sorry if I might, Madam Chair, just follow that up. When will that implementation plan with your resource consents people be operable or be available for scrutiny?
Through you, Madam Chair, it was attached to the paper as I understand it.
It was in the readings, Councillor.
Okay, can I move now, please, to Hilary, followed by Andrew?
No, it's
I think I heard Peter say that in the Environment Court something about expert views or something, and that the ORC would provide reasons or explanation as to why they have put what they have in the plan, something like that. My question is, when our staff respond, presumably they're responding as our staff, not as the council, because the council hasn't put this plan out. It hasn't been put out by us. It's only at this stage a plan which has been presented by the staff to the council. So presumably, if our staff are going to the Environment Court and telling them something, they're not saying this is why council put that in the plan, because council hasn't put that in the plan. I'm just trying to tease out who are the staff speaking on behalf of when they speak to the Environment Court in that instance.
Peter?
The answer to that's quite simple. It wouldn't matter what the matter was that was before the court. If the staff were there speaking, they're speaking there as professionals. They're not speaking on behalf of the council.
No, sorry, I thought you had said, through Madam Chair, I thought you had said that they would be asked by the Environment Court, or they might be putting in something as to why whatever was in the plan was in the plan. So.
Oh, they could well be, but in appearing before the Environment Court, they are as individual experts, and it doesn't matter who it is.
Yes, no, that's
Hilary, they're not representing our views. They're representing their views.
So they can't, if they're answering the question as of why that was in the plan or whatever, they have to be answering that as someone. Because I'm a professional, I just put it in a plan. I mean,
Anita.
So through you, Madam Chair, if I can perhaps assist Councillor Calvert, if it were me providing evidence to the court, I would be providing the reasons why I had put it in a plan from a planning perspective. There may also be a science perspective, a compliance perspective. So all of those individual people would be providing technical expert input to the court based on their particular expertise, not representing ORC, but representing their professional expertise.
Okay, Andrew Noon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Peter, you've outlined the process sort of from go to woe sort of thing, and I'm just wondering whether you were able to estimate the time frame to notification, because that's essentially quite a, I imagine, relatively short period, and then an estimation to an Environment Court decision.
The discussion I had 3 hours ago with the EPA regarding timeframes, because I thought this question might come up, was it's unlikely that they will notify before the 9th of May. And that's just because of the procedural steps they have to go through to get to the point where they can notify the minister's direction. From notification to Environment Court hearing, it's a best guess, but we could be looking at a hearing August, September this year. To a decision after that, assuming maybe a month's worth of hearings, Christmas, shortly after. It's very, very difficult to estimate because we just don't know, one, how many submissions, and two, how long the Environment Court may take.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions on what a call-in is and what happens now? Michael?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. I'm sorry, I've got the same papers as everybody else, I'm assuming. The instructions that we're giving to our resource consent staff to process plan change 8/1, am I surmised that those are the plan change that is attached to this particular agenda? Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's what you've just, Brian, when you were saying it's attached already, that's what you meant, is it?
Yes, it's in the implementation plan. There's some big tables. I'm not sure what page it is near the back about the implementation. There's quite a few pages on it.
So that's, yes, I've got that. So, and our staff, thank you. Yes, I had read that. So our staff know that at the detail level, that is sufficiently detailed for anybody who's making an application. And that's the question I was going to ask of Michael and the team. They'll know exactly what that means, and so will anybody else apply as well.
Anita?
Yeah, so I'll start through you, Madam Chair, but I might get Joe. I think Joe Gilroy's here as well. But yes, the consents team have been working with us in developing the rules, and they've been assisting us with the guidance information as well. And Joe perhaps can speak to the detail in the actual rules.
Is Joe there?
Yes, I am. Hi, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have been one part of the implementation plan, so it also looks at our rural liaison team and our compliance team. So there has been a real focus on making sure that across the organisation that we are able to explain these rules, also specifically within my team. So that will be ensuring that my team know the rules and can explain them, but also our forms are fit for purpose. So we are busy developing those, and that there's the right amount of guidance available on our website. So we're doing everything we can.
And that was the point, Marion, I wanted to make, is can we get access to the information package, particularly the pamphleting and things like that, that is going out to our constituents, please?
Anita, can you answer that?
Through you, Madam Chair, we haven't yet finalised at Councillor Laws because we weren't sure exactly whether the plan would be adopted. It may be that the EPA asks for some further information, but once we have the final to be notified change, then that information can absolutely be made available.
Great, thank you very much. That's what I was after.
I've got Kate and asking a question. I can't see anyone else.
So, I'm just feeling very, very confused for anyone who I hope is watching in today about the clarity we've given what has happened since this paper came out and what happened this morning with the letters from the Minister. And I would welcome someone just clarifying that so this context of this discussion makes sense.
Okay, I will attempt to. Peter, can you correct me if I make a mistake? We in February wrote to the Minister, and we wrote to the Minister and we asked for plans 1, 7 and 8, 1 and 8 that we were meant to be considering today. And we said, please, could you call in these papers? And call in is when, instead of going through a process that happens most times with plans, where a plan gets heard by commissioners, and then, people might appeal it to the Environment Court. Instead of that happening, it's going to be going straight, in this case, to the Environment Court. And the reason that we gave for that, for our reason, was largely these were very important plans, and we had a shortage in the South Island of skilled commissioners able to deal with it at that level. Because at the moment, there are water plans going through in Southland and in Canterbury. And we thought, dear God, this is, this is pretty heavy work. And you had a discussion, we had a discussion in council. I was trying to go for a board of inquiry. You gave the feeling out that actually you wanted Environment Court. Environment Court was when I was asked last week by the EPA, could I have a guess for what, not a guess, a response as to what the council asked. And I said, I got the feeling that it was directly for an Environment Court more than the other. And that's what's happened. So that group called the Environment Protection Agency. So when we wrote our letter to the minister, he sends it off to the Environment Protection Agency, who do a whole lot of reading and questioning and deciding whether this is something that the minister can call in on law. They gave their advice yesterday to say that they were going to advise the minister to call in. At 8:46 last night, I didn't get it then actually because I was watching something on television. An email came through that the minister had signed off 1, 8 and 7 to go directly to the Environment Court. And then it follows as Peter has outlined.
Yep.
Is that fair
Thank
enough?
you.
Yeah.
It's there.
Hillary?
Just to fill in the last wee bit of that puzzle, we were, I guess, some of us surprised at finding out that a letter had been written on our behalf on the 1st of April. But the EPA, I understand, had another period of time before they had to answer Minister Parker as to what their advice to him was. Like the 14th of April or the 20th of April or whatever that date was.
22nd of April.
22nd of April. In the event, after we sent a letter on the 1st of April, they decided last night, or had decided whenever they did, to send something at 8:43 last night to call it in. Did either you, Sarah, or you, Chair, have any interactions with them between that 1st of April and last night at 8:43 or something that made them suddenly not use the time they had to think about it, but last night send us something to call it in?
Okay. I can probably be as practical can. No, I don't. I'm trying to think. I have communicated. When the letter of 7 came out, okay, I communicated to the minister's office to say, dear God, I don't think I've got a majority and we have a problem because if the plan doesn't go through, we're not meeting what we said we were going to meet by the end of March. Remember, we said in our letter to the minister, we'd get these 2 plans through by the end of March. And I alerted him, not David, because I haven't been able to get anywhere near David. I've alerted him in the office to that, the office of the minister, to that particular issue. On the 1st of April letter, that letter is in there, that was just alerting, not asking, all right? It wasn't asking for anything because we had already asked. Late February, we wrote letters asking. Didn't have to ask any further. That work had been done. We'd agreed to it. The letter on the 1st of April, and Anita might need to come in and help me here, is actually a kind of a technical letter. They wanted to know that we'd done section 32. You know, there's a whole lot of things that you have to do that you've all got in your plans. They wanted to know that they had all been done, and we went back and said yes. And then they came back and said to me, can you say whether that was a court of inquiry or an environment? So does that answer your question, Hillary?
No, I wanted to know what happened between the 1st and
Nothing.
last night.
Nothing.
But neither you nor Sarah nor anybody had anything to do with the EPA in that length of time.
Maybe they read the ODT.
All they know is when I sent up a letter to the minister's office saying, this is the letter from the group of 7. I have a problem. This is what I'm suggesting. And I set out the agenda for the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, and that was it. Okay.
Chief Executive, has there been any communication between you or the chair with the EPA or the Minister's office between that letter on the 1st and now?
I can't speak for the chair. I can only speak for myself. I have not had a conversation with the Minister's office at all. And I have only had between the 1st and today, the information that I sent to you last night, I think it was late in the day, which was the recommendation from the EPA to the Minister. And then the information I sent you this morning, which was the formal directions from the Minister with a covering letter from the EPA. I have not personally spoken to anyone at the EPA.
Who wrote the letter of the 1st?
God, I can't remember.
I drafted most of it. That was a similar letter to the one that we'd sent to the Minister.
Yeah, it was a section, the section 32 things. I think I signed it. I remember reading it. Okay. And that really is a very technical letter. That wasn't us.
With respect, it wasn't because it said it is our intention to do something, and it was our intention to do something was to put before council what we would have had today, short of the call-in, and that suggests that it wasn't your intention, Marion, written on our letterhead. It was our intention, which suggests to me that it was somebody's intention.
Truly, Hillary, I think you're dancing on the hairs of the thing of a pin, because we had told the Minister in the letter in late December or whenever it was that we were planning to put up a plan for adoption and for notification, Plan 8, Plan 1. I wasn't springing anything on you. We'd had a workshop on this plan in late January. There was nothing being sprung to say this plan is up on the agenda for this particular meeting.
No, it's a question of what was in the plan, and that although we'd asked for the Minister to call it in, we had, I think, all anticipated that what we were asking him to do was call it in after we had notified a plan that we were happy to adopt.
Okay, so one of the things I have done, trying to always be independent, is I've rung other lawyers, and because I wanted to understand this actually. And if you read section 25 of the Resource Management Act, it talks about the powers of the Minister. And the Minister can do several things when he feels as though his work on a national policy statement is being thwarted by a council. He can actually put a commissioner into a council. He can instruct the council to do something, to write a plan, which is virtually what he did through Peter Skelton and that S24. And he can, if you don't do that, he can then call in the plan at whatever stage it is. Okay, and that's what he's chosen to do.
Can I just make an observation, Marion? Is it okay?
Yes.
There wasn't any attempt to thwart, as you've described, the National Policy Statement on Freshwater Management or any of the plans which would have activated interest in that particular clause. What you'd had on the 26th of March was a letter from 7 of us that just said, gee, landscape's changed, Taiha, can we have another look at this, please? And what I've heard from you is you saying, well, I don't have a majority anymore who think that this is a very good idea, so can we do it this way?
No, Michael, I didn't say, so can we do it this way? I merely pointed out that I'd had a very public, both over radio and in the newspapers, statement that no longer were we committing to what we had committed to in a letter to the Minister late January. And I think of all courtesy, I should be able to tell him that.
But that's fair enough for us to reconsider our advice. We hadn't passed the omnibus plan change at that time. It was on the agenda for the 25th of March. And as you know, we obviously didn't have that meeting. But then we had a meeting last week at which you could have told us that you'd had this correspondence with the EPA and that you'd received the letter of the 31st of March. And here was, and what's my reply going to be on the 1st of April? This is our first opportunity to notify or to adopt Plan Change 8 today, as it was originally in the agenda. Obviously, that's been taken out of our hands now by the minister's decision. But I would have thought that at least we could have been afforded the discussion and you could have taken us into your confidence about your discussions with both the EPA and with the minister's office prior to essentially affirming a desire to thwart, if anything, the desire of 7 of your councillors, a majority of the council, to discuss this particular issue. That's all we wanted to do. We wanted to have a chat. And we don't have that opportunity for a chat anymore, do we? No.
Right, are there any other questions?
Um,
Do you sorry, who was that?
It's Brian.
Brian.
To just make the observation and reply to the last 2 speakers, as you said, Madam Chair, that, you know, the pretense wanting to have a chat is different than articles and radio stations and public statements. It doesn't seem to me as wanting to have a chat.
Oh, some of us had a view, Brian. We're allowed to.
Well, just make up your mind which one is it.
Out of order. Brian?
No, I've said what I need to say on that particular matter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
Well, we have a very strong view, and that is the view that we want the very best for the public of Otago. So if that means all of a sudden having a slight change, and we have a thing called COVID-19. So that brought people's heads just a wee bit into a different space. I have a family in France going through this, and I'm exceptionally stressed about this whole issue. So if we can't, as a group, make some representation as a group for people to sit down and use the word tai-ho for just a moment while we're in a pretty sick damn society. So that's where we were at. And I think we have been, this to me, I think there's a lot more been happening. Look, I'm quite broken about this whole issue because you have a look now at the motion that will come before you later. And if that's met with any resistance, that will show that people in this council are not as a whole working for Otago. I'll leave it at that because I will wait for that motion.
Okay, can I, what we were discussing, and I think we've almost got over it and through it, is, and we've got 10 minutes to go, was actually about what a call-in was, and it does. Do I understand that you want to go on and discuss the details of plans 1 and 8?
No.
No. Therefore, Andrew, do you want to say something?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Hey, look, I won't bore people, but I think that we've got ourselves into a little bit of a pickle. And through no one's fault, we have had staff and consultants working under a relatively tight time frame because we are on this mission to deliver on a number of updated plan changes and, of course, ultimately a new land and water plan by end of 2025 or early 26. So I think that's probably number one. Time frame has been tight. Number two, we've got a community that wants to engage with us. I think everyone around the table has had feedback in some way, shape or form, if not associated with Plan Change 8/Plan Change 1, certainly with Plan Change 7. So we've got a community who wants to engage. And I think the other really important aspect is that as a council and as planners, consultants, we haven't got all the answers, but I think collectively by working with the community, we can come up with a better proposed plan that we've currently got. So I want to really just hone in on the recommendations that have been modified a little, but it's essentially now a recommendation to EPA, and it's certainly honing in on the ability for that plan to be implemented without further consultation. And I want to go back to the consultation that was referred to earlier. We had targeted consultation with sector groups and mandatory parties back late last year, early this year. We fulfilled our obligations under the RMA in terms of consulting with their mandatory parties. We went back, and that obviously included iwi or Akaha, who speak for the collective of Runanga across the region. And then we went back to iwi again, as per the RMA requirement. So we ticked those boxes. So that's all good. However, the problem we've got is that we had targeted consultation with the sector groups, and then we developed a proposed plan, and then we had some notification consultation. And you can see in the Section 32 report that the feedback that we got, apart from the mandatory bodies, including Akaha, Department of Conservation was included in there. We had three submissions. One of those effectively was actually over time. It was late. So we had 3 submissions after notifying that that initial draft of Plan Change 8 / Plan Change 1. I don't know about everyone else, but I find that we are now in a situation that there's a heck of a lot of people out there they don't understand what's in front of them, because they actually haven't seen a plan change in the form it's currently in now for the pre-consultation or pre-notification consultation. So I really worry that the people who are on the ground, who we need to buy into this plan, will not have any idea about the methods and rules, as compared with the mandatory bodies who have actually had the luxury of seeing a draft plan. So those sector groups that I'm referring to have essentially had a conversation at the front end of this process, and now we're at the pointy end of the process, and we were thinking about notification, which is now no longer our responsibility, but we're really at the point where we should have a plan that fit for purpose for the community to absorb, and I don't think we're there. So we're underdone on the consultation sphere, and it's really to do with the tight timeframes we're having to work through. And I just want to touch on the overall objectives and policies that are in Plan Change 8 / Plan Change 1. And it was touched on before about the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. I don't think there's anyone out there, I haven't heard of anyone around the table who's promoting that we should be trying to steer the government in that direction. We are essentially wanting to give effect to that document. I also say that everyone around the table, there's no one promoting the idea of further degradation of water quality. And yeah, so I feel a little frustrated that we haven't taken the opportunity to further discuss and engage with sector groups. And the reason why I'm frustrated is because of the time frame. Not blaming anybody, but if we've got a window of opportunity, which we thought we had, that window of opportunity now sits with EPA. So hence the modification to the recommendation. So it's a request for the EPA to carry out what we were hoping we were going to do with an independent facilitator. And when you're ready, I'm happy to move the 4 motions that are in front of us. And I hope everyone received those earlier today. I think I sent them out about 12:15.
You did. You did.
Happy to second.
So that's been moved by
Andrew, Bob.
Andrew, and it's been seconded by Kate. I'm very well aware that Gretchen's had her hand up for some time. Sorry, Kate, can I just call in Gretchen?
I don't need to talk to her.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I hear the frustration that people have on the process has now been taken out of our hands. That is frustrating. It's actually frustrating for all of us who all care about the community, but it's actually also now probably, I don't know, the best thing that could happen in a bad situation, and I'll go on to that in a minute. But we have brought this on ourselves, and we raised an issue that Wellington felt that they needed to act upon, and they did so promptly. We, being 7 councillors who excluded 5 others, never gave them a chance to have a say, and brought out very publicly some views. Wellington's decided to do it this way now, and it is out of our hands. Probably all of us would have preferred to engage with our own communities, to work to iron things out, but we now need to trust that the process is going to work as well as it possibly can, but it's out of our hands and our control. We cannot influence Wellington or EPA or Environment Court in the process now. It's not our process. And that's all that needs to be said from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Gretchen. I've got Brian's got his hand up.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree with what Gretchen's just said. I say a big thank you to Minister Parker for taking up this council's offer to call in our plan changes PC8 and PC1. The Environment Court can now hear in a legal and transparent way what is proposed at a minimum to maintain water quality in Otago. And of course, this is timely as many of our lowland rivers are degraded. While I thank Andrew for his motion and his consideration, I've reflected on it and I will not be supporting it. The Minister in his letter has questioned this council's capacity to progress these proposals in a timely manner. And so I'm surprised that we take it upon ourselves to endeavour to guide the EPA on their processes. If some councillors or community have issues, I encourage them to submit with the Environment Court processes, and the Environment Court can itself exercise appropriate and due processes without us endeavouring to tell them how to do it. I hope that this council can now move forward, focus and perform better on other significant issues. For example, the COVID virus, the annual plan and our new water plan. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to or for the motion? Hilary, in a minute. Can I just check? Have you got the motion, people, in front of you? It's 4 parts. Council asks the EPA to send the proposed Plan Change 8 and Plan Change 1 for further consultation with mandatory parties and sector group representatives. It goes on that a facilitator be engaged, that Council recommend to the EPA a facilitator in the non-public section of the meeting, and that council staff provide administrative support and planning advice as required to the facilitator. Hilary.
The point of these set of resolutions, I believe, is to make an attempt to improve the quality of the plan that includes Water Plan 8 and Water Plan 1, which I think is in the interests of everybody. I also believe that this will shorten the process if we can encourage the EPA to get together a group who can nut out some improvements to the plan, which will reduce the chances of people having to expensively involve themselves with the Environment Court, and indeed will shorten the amount of time required in the Environment Court, which will also increase the chances of the Environment Court being able to meet sooner and deal with them. If we end up in a position that more is nutted out through people getting together before the Environment Court meets, then it could well be that it can meet earlier. It can have its hearings earlier because it won't need as many days to have its hearings. I think the water quality in Otago will benefit from this being a shorter process by engaging more with the community to iron out the wrinkles that still remain in these two plans.
Just before, can I just answer some of those questions in there, Hilary? Hilary, you make an assumption that the plan is poor. Can you specify for me what is poor about the plan?
The detail of it, I don't want to get involved in, partly because my expertise about what it is in particular. For example, I don't want to get involved in a discussion about clay water linings or whatever's going on with those. It's clear to me from what the dairy industry and other farming people and irrigators are saying, that they think that there's pieces in it that are unworkable. There are some things that to me will make us look a bit silly for presenting it, in the sense that, for example, the control of dairy herds compared with the control of exactly the same animals, which as it happens would grow up to be dairy cows, or as it happens would grow up to be beef cattle. Some of them are kept out of the waterways, some of them aren't. It seems to me irrational, and I can't see it. I think, Madam Chair, you have on a previous occasion said you have photos from people of cows being in the water. No, you haven't said that? I thought you had said that you had seen cows in the water, or there was photographs or whatever. I'm not sure that the photographs that anybody thinks of when they think of cows in the water would show a cow of a particular sort, or a cattle of a particular sort, rather than a cattle of a particular other sort. It's only our construct that calls them one or the other, and I just think there's just more to be done with the plan.
Okay, Hilary, there's only one thing I'm going to say to you, and I'm going to say it in public, and this has all been recorded, probably will go up to the EPA, is that I expect a fabulous apology from you and the others who've been bad-mouthing our staff when this plan gets passed as being absolutely on the knocker and correct. From a thing of sometimes ignorance and hearsay, without even a discussion on the plan, people have been making quite strong stipulations. When I've raised those issues with staff, I've had totally different and clear examples. So should this be proven and taken up by the courts and taken through and said, this is a good plan, I expect some apologies. Sorry, I've just had to get one little thing off my chest. Alexa, followed by Gretchen.
Gretchen spoken.
I haven't spoken yet.
Alexa
Gretchen
has
spoken.
I would just like to say that I think that it's wrong to say that it increases costs for people to take part in this process. Peter was very clear that it doesn't, and that you don't need counsel, and that can happen. And in my own investigations, I don't believe that it increased costs for people or takes more time. And in fact, the fact that there's no appeals possibly means it saves both time and money. The resolution I can't support because it simply interferes with the national process that we have, and I don't know what the basis is for us to ask for a change or an adjustment in the national process. And I've got no precedent in law. I haven't had time to go and look for one, just came through today, but I don't know what precedents in law there are for us to actually go in and ask to tell the EPA what to do. If there are faults with the plan, they will be well aired in this process. That's what it's about.
I've got a procedural problem. Sorry, people. First up, I asked Hilary a question to try and example, and we ended up talking about the detail, when in actual fact we're meant to be talking to the resolution. And which is why I think Kate said to me, Gretchen has already spoken. So I'm going back, people, and I'm not going to have an argument about the detail on the plan, because you didn't seem to want to talk about that. You wanted to go to this resolution.
I answered you.
Sorry?
I did answer you as to the detail when you asked for
Yes,
detail.
you did. I know you did. Kate didn't say that you didn't. At least I didn't think I did. Kate, you had your
No, I
hand-
didn't.
Oh.
No.
Michael has his hand up. Sorry.
Thank you. Can I just say that there's a very good, I think, well, is it a Section 32 report that's attached to this Plan Change 8? And just to answer Brian and to Gretchen, it makes the point, the Otago Regional Council has known since 2012 that the water plan of this council was not effectively managing discharges from rural activities. So that's how long it's known, and done nothing, and done nothing. And secondly, we also know that we're not effectively, as of today, and it's been known again for, I guess, about the same amount of time, we're certainly not doing much about urban water discharges either. Now, the horse is bolted, I have to say. Marion, can I just say, from one politician to another, I thought your strategic sense over the last week wasn't too bad. But can I also say that when we're moving forward now, this particular motion is about more discussion, trying to make sure that our position is shored up well. The Otago Regional Council found itself dreadfully embarrassed over the Lindis decision, Marion, in front of the Environment Court, and some of the advice that it tendered to Council prior to the Environment Court serving the Otago Regional Council in a big way in its final judgment and deliberations. And that may well happen here. We don't know. But what we do know is that in this Section 32 report, there is continual reference to the basis of what we don't know. And that is what concerns me most of all. We hold, apparently, according to this report, and I quote, little information about the effect of rural land uses on water quality in Otago. So there is uncertainty about the particular land uses that are particularly contributing to degraded water quality. In other words, our science is not up to it. And let's be honest about that, shall we too? We're making a decision based upon a good amount of hope, because we don't have an awful lot of scientific evidence at the moment that links one thing that's happening, for example, in a rural area or community to the degradation of water in another, Brian. Been asking for that for a long time. ORC haven't been providing it because we haven't had the staff. And let's hope in this annual plan we do something about that, and that we get that kind of information to allow us to make well-qualified decisions. But one of the reasons that I think this motion, Marion, is worthy of your support is that it's non-threatening. It's intended to promote more discussion, not less. It's intended to get everybody into the same room talking about how is this going to work at a practical level. And the more information that the EPA and the Environment Court, and that we as an expert witness in our own little way, will be doing in front of the Environment Court, the better. There is never anything wrong with discussion.
Thank you, Michael. Andrew Noon.
Just my right of reply.
Oh, Kate, did you want to have anything? Say anything? No. Andrew?
Thank you. Was that Kevin?
Yeah, I do. I just haven't been able to get my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Kevin. Andrew,
It's not with and I'm not with a dairy cow. I'm not with a dairy cow, Madam Chair.
Oh.
Look, I just
too much information, Kevin.
I'm fully supportive of the motion. We've got an exceptionally important document that we're about to work on, that we started to work on, which is our regional policy statement. This motion will show to our public that we are willing to talk, that we want to evolve our process from what it has been in the past, and get that out there and talk with people. The people of Otago need to be talked to. We need to listen to them, and we need all groups on board. So this motion will go a long way after the call up being made of getting us on side with those people that we're trying to do. And that was our reason that we stated right at the very start. Thank you.
Carmen's got a hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would echo that. I saw that definitely at the Waimea Field Days. A number of people come up to us and said they were, excited about this as well, but wanting to engage. And I would just like to echo what Councillor Noon said, and Councillor Malcolm as well, and I do support this motion.
Gary Kelleher. Gary?
Yeah, sorry, I was just unmuting. totally agree and will support the motion. Real concern in the community that is being raised about the practicality of the plans. I think council has an obligation to put forward plans that are achievable and have engaged across the spectrum to get some way right before they end up in a more formal process that's much harder to follow. Just on regarding the letter, I supported the letter and was very keen to see it because I saw it as a follow-on from the initial email I'd sent around easing up on the community given what had changed with COVID. I am really worried about the extent of consultation and the ability for people to consult fairly and as they would in normal circumstances. And you have some out there that are very stressed, under a lot of pressure, trying to maintain their businesses. You have others that have lost a lot of staff. So the community at the moment are in varying situations individually. And so I will be supporting the motions put forward by Andrew.
Andrew, just before you speak, can Michael Deaker, Michael Deaker, and then I want to speak too. Sorry. Michael?
A question of the CE, if I may, Sarah. If this motion passes and it's directed at the EPA, asking them to follow certain courses of action, to what extent can they take notice of that, given the minister's decision?
Thank you very much, Councillor Deaker, for your question. I don't believe
you were a member of the EPA, by the way.
Oh, yes, sorry, just recording that I was previously the general manager of this process for the EPA. I have processed, well, probably over 20 proposals of national significance, including plan changes through the process. I've never in my time with the EPA seen a motion like this or a resolution potentially come from a council like this. I think it is not something that would normally happen, and I've listened to all your reasoning, but the reality is that ORC does not have control of this process anymore.
True.
And so your resolution is not one that has any standing inside of the process. And so all I'm really saying is I can't give you any surety that the resolution would be taken up because it's not within my sphere of influence or yours. And so, yeah, I'm just basically that's what I would advise you, that well, as well-intentioned as it may be, I don't know that you will achieve anything by agreeing the motion. My sense would be that it sits outside the process you are now in.
Okay, is that okay, Michael Deaker?
Thank you.
Can I just say, sorry, Andrew, I know what you're trying to do, but I won't be voting for it, and I won't be voting for it because of my previous past life and history and understanding what happens when another agency comes in and says it's taking over. I would hope actually that the other agency would get a copy of this debate and they would understand the angst and the detail. My also hope is, and kind of belief, is that an environment court, and I've seen the Court of Inquiry working in the Lower Waitaki. People came before that court saying, can we be guaranteed that the pipeline that's being put in won't cause a dust storm and affect my washing? That was at the limit that people appeared before the court. And it was all taken incredibly seriously and very well. As well, there are, of course, the experts on what happened when you take out a braided river. So I have a trust, and I have to say, I have more trust in that process than another one sitting out to the side that is not as transparent. A one in front of the court is a transparent process. So that's why I'm not voting for it. Kate.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I wasn't going to. I will be supporting this, and I think a whole lot of ideas have been conflated and confused, really. This is about ensuring that there's an opportunity to improve the plan change and or the Section 32 report should the EPA decide that it needs to be done. We're front-footing it and saying, actually, this is a really good way of getting right through that process and probably having a better understanding of what the issues are and planning for the timeframes. And I think we're offering, given COVID-19 and the difficulties in some of these processes, an alternative that makes sense to this community right now. And it's, okay. I'm not going to second guess where the EPA are. We're offering it up as an alternative, and that is why we're doing it. And I'm happy to offer that up as an alternative method in the short term to get a better result.
Alexa, I'm not recognising you because you've already spoken once. I'm handing back over now to sorry, Andrew. Sorry, Andrew.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Look, I think that's really good discussion. It's good to hear everyone's views, but fundamentally, I think natural justice and fair process underpins the RMA, and it will certainly underpin a discussion at the Environment Court when Plan Change 8/Plan Change 1 will be discussed, and it will come back to reading through the Section 32 report, where essentially it highlights the fact that the mandatory parties, bodies, whatever, have been clearly consulted with. We've ticked that box, done that well, but it highlights we didn't go back to the other parties because there were time constraints. So based on that fact, that triggers, in my view, the natural justice fair process argument, which I think will become quite a major issue at the Environment Court. So what this resolution is trying to do is to ensure that that minimises that focus, and also it helps to ensure, hopefully, an ease of implementation of these new rules when eventually they become notified and then operative. So that's why I want to, remain supportive of this motion, and I thank the ones that have spoken in favour of it to this point, and also acknowledge the other members who don't feel able to support it. And I understand that, but just remember, clearly the report in front of us today from staff and the consultant clearly indicates they were pressed for time. They couldn't go back to those other parties that were, it wasn't mandatory to do so, and it didn't happen simply because of the shortened time frame that they were working within. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to put the motion. Before I do, I just want to say to the staff, I haven't allowed you to come into this debate and to comment, and I know that hasn't been totally fair when some statements have been made, about what you have or haven't got on the report. My apologies for that. I really wanted, because we are well over time and we have another job to do as yet. So those four motions were put together. I've just lost them. Sorry. They were put together. They were moved by Andrew and seconded by Kate. I'm now going to
Can I call for a division,
yes,
please?
Calling for a division. Hilary Calvert.
Yes.
Yes. Michael Deaker.
No.
Alexa Forbes.
No.
Marion Hobbs. No. Carmen Hope.
Yes.
Gary Kelleher.
Yes.
Michael Laws.
Yes.
Kevin Malcolm.
Yes.
Andrew Noon.
Yes.
Gretchen.
No.
No. Brian Scott.
No.
Kate Wilson.
Yes.
Madam Secretary, can you tell me, I presume it's 7-5? 7-5.
It's carried 7-5.
Sarah, I will ask you to send this up to the EPA as is, and probably you might want to include this debate in that. The next thing is that, to the people out there, I am presuming, people, that you do not want to vote on, having voted for that, you do not want to vote for plans 1 and 8. Have I got that clear? People don't want to vote for that.
Yeah. Should
No,
we
no,
note
you
it?
can't.
It's gone.
I just want to check
Gone.
that.
Correct.
You could have, but that motion wipes that out. So can I just say to people now that we're going to a publicly excluded part of the agenda, and to the public, the whole 10 of them who may be watching, we won't come back onto a public. What we're going to do is an appointed.
119, Marion, 119. This is a happening thing. Gone viral, guys.
Oh, okay. Sorry. God save us, Alexa. That was a voice out of the magic. So to the 19, did you say 19?
119.
Okay, to the 119
Wow.
people who have persevered through this, can I just say that we will close down and go into a public excluded agenda, and the purpose of the public excluded agenda is to appoint an auditor, I think, or a member to the audit committee. Okay, so bye-bye, peoples.